Dana White just erupted with huge fight after huge fight. I can't even believe how much fight news we just got. And the first fight that I want to talk about, we got Alexander Volkanovski taking on Diego Lopez for the undisputed, vacated featherweight belt. Ilia Topuria also did vacate his belt. He's moving up to lightweight. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But right now, we got Alexander Volkanovski taking on Ilia Topuria. No, he's not. Alexander Volkanovski taking on Diego Lopez. This fight's amazing. Diego Lopez is a straight-up killer. He has great knockout power, but he's a known gasser. That is true. He's a known gasser. He has 1-round cardio, and Dan Ige whooped his ass in the 3rd round. People are out here trying to say that Alexander Volkanovski's going to lose and get KO'd and all this kind of stuff. Like, dude, Diego Lopez, I mean, he got his ass beat by Dan Ige in that 3rd round. I'm very, very confident picking Alexander Volkanovski to win this fight. I think Volk's going to beat him. I think Volk's going to be able to weigh on him in the later rounds, and I don't think that he's going to get KO'd in the first. I mean, there is a real chance that Diego Lopez just sleeps Volk in 1 and Volk is washed up and Volk has no chin, okay? But I'm not going to bank on that. Volk, he's one of my favorite fighters, okay? He's definitely one of my favorites on the roster. Dan Hooker is number 1, of course, but Alexander Volkanovski, he's one of my favorite fighters on the roster, and he does have a really, really tough test in Diego Lopez. Obviously, it's not Ilia Topuria, but I think that it's a really, really tough test, and in my opinion, if Volk wins this fight against Diego Lopez, he's top 3 all time. I think he passes. I think he passes Demetrius Johnson. I think he passes Islam. I think he passes DC. I think he's already passed Aldo. I think he passed Aldo with his Yair win. I think that alone passed him over Aldo. Yeah, I mean, if he beats Diego Lopez, I think he's undoubtedly the featherweight GOAT. At that point, you can't even argue Jose Aldo. And yeah, I mean, I think he's 3rd all time. I think it's only GSP and John Jones in front of him. And yeah, I mean, I think Islam is 4, and I think Pereira is also up there too. You could say, hey, you could call it recency biased, but I'm sorry, man. I mean, the level of fighters that Volk has been fighting in his career, it's unbelievable. All right, but Diego Lopez, he is a straight-up dog, and he could totally sleep. Like, it's totally possible. Like, he might just go out there and sleep Alexander Volkanovski in round 1, but I'm just not going to pick that to happen. Okay, Alexander Volkanovski, he's better everywhere. Volk is better everywhere. Diego Lopez is a known gasser. His defensive ground game is not amazing. Okay, I mean, yeah, I mean, he's pretty explosive on the ground. He's a Walmart Charles Oliveira. He's a featherweight off-brand Charles Oliveira, and I'm gonna be picking Volk to get the win. But now, moving on, Ilia Topuria is moving up. What's next for Ilia Topuria? A lot of people are saying Islam Makhachev, but I don't think that they're going to do it. I think that if they were going to do Islam, they would have announced it when they announced all these other fights. I don't think that they're going to wait for a huge fight like that to get announced. And if Ilia Topuria was going to move up and fight him, if he vacated his belt, he would already have it set to fight Islam. So I just don't think that he's going to fight him. Okay? What I think that they're going to do with the UFC lightweight division, I think that they're going to pair up Charles Oliveira and Arman Tsarukyan too, and I think that they're going to do Dustin Poirier and Ilia Topuria. Dustin Poirier was talking about how he wants a big fight and all this other stuff, and he's not going to fight Paddy, he's not going to fight Chandler, right? He's not going to fight Moicano. He's not going to fight these other guys. Like, he wants a star, right? He says that he wants a star for his send-off. And obviously, he's not going to fight Islam again. He's not going to fight Oliveira again. Why would he fight Oliveira again? And assuming that he's not going to fight Arman, because that fight would just be terrible, give him Ilia Topuria. I mean, I just think that it makes a whole lot of sense. I think Ilia Topuria could totally fight Dustin Poirier. And Dustin Poirier is a huge lightweight. I think that fight would be amazing. I could totally see Dustin Poirier pulling that off. Ilia Topuria does have some amazing power, and he has some of the best boxing in featherweight. But his defense is definitely lacking, and he's fighting a guy like Dustin Poirier, who's absolutely massive for lightweight, and I think that he's going to be way, way bigger than Ilia Topuria, and I think that he's going to be able to eat some of those shots, maybe better than Volk and Holloway did. So I don't really know who I'd pick in that fight, and I think that if it went for Islam and Ilia Topuria, and they booked Islam and Topuria for the belt, I do think that Islam would get it done. I think Islam would choke him out. Islam has some amazing offensive grappling, and I think the threat of the takedown could open up better shots on the feet for him against Topuria too. Not to mention, Islam is way bigger than Ilia Topuria. I think Topuria has some hard matchups at 155, and I think that he's gonna have a really tough road. I think he'd lose to Islam, and I think that there's a serious chance that he'd lose to Dustin Poirier. He is riding a massive aura streak right now, and he's debatably the featherweight GOAT at this point after beating the other two GOATs, but I can't see him winning the belt at 155 just yet, and I also don't see him beating Dustin Poirier, and that's the fight that I think that they're gonna do. But moving on, another title fight got announced for UFC 315, and that is Belal Muhammad taking on Jack Della Maddalena, right? Jack Della Maddalena. I love Jack Della Maddalena, right? He's one of my favorite fighters in the UFC. I know I've been saying that a lot in my recent videos, but Jack Della, JDM, he's a killer, man. Oh, but he's a straight-up killer, man. He's a killer, man. And I'm telling you right now, I think he beats Belal Muhammad. Okay? A lot of people are picking Belal Muhammad to just kind of smudge him up and dominate him in the wrestling and put a bunch of takedowns together and just kind of smother Jack Della. And I just have this sneaky suspicion that he's going to beat the shit out of this guy. I think Belal's going to get knocked out. JDM has some of the best and crispest boxing in the game. And yeah, okay, sure. Belal Muhammad posed a threat to Leon Edwards on the feet, who has almost no output and almost no pressure, right? But Jack Della Maddalena, I don't think Belal's going to be able to eat those shots from him. I think Belal has really, really poor striking defense, and I think that he kind of gets overwhelmed on the feet when people begin to pressure him. You saw it in his fight with Jeff Neal when he got slept, and you also saw it in his fight with Wonderboy Thompson when it was on the feet. He was just getting very overwhelmed with the pressure that was getting brought to him, and I just think that Jack Della Maddalena is going to bring a lot of pressure to the table against Belal Muhammad, and I think that he's going to beat him. Okay, I do think that Jack Della is going to open up as a pretty big underdog, and I think that Belal is going to be a pretty huge favorite, and a lot of people are picking Belal Muhammad. Lucas Tracy picked Belal Muhammad. The Weasel picked Belal Muhammad. ITP MMA Live, if you guys know that channel, he also picked Belal Muhammad. So, I think I'm going to be picking against Belal. I think I'm going to be picking the underdog. I actually picked Belal against Leon Edwards, and a lot of people doubted him in that fight. And he seemed to come out on top there. And I think that he's going to lose to Jack Della. I think Jack Della is going to run through this whole division. I think JDM would also knock out Shavkat Rakhmonov, but that is a story for another video. Another fight that got announced, or actually a few other fights that got announced, was that super stacked UFC 314 card that got announced with Carlos Prates and Jeff Neal, Michael Chandler and Paddy Pimblett, and Yair Rodriguez taking on Patricio Pitbull. And the first one that I want to talk about out of those three is Michael Chandler taking on Paddy Pimblett. I think Michael Chandler is going to knock him out in one. I don't know if that's crazy to say or not, but I think Michael Chandler is going to knock him out in one. Okay, if you see the energy and the aggression that Michael Chandler brought in that fifth round against Charles Oliveira, he looked amazing. Rocked him, hurt him, and almost killed him with those shots to the back of the head, by the way. And Paddy Pimblett might be catching a few of those shots to the back of the head, and he might be getting knocked out and slept unconscious with some back of the head ground and pound strikes if he ever tries to even take down Michael Chandler in the first place. Okay? But on a real note, Michael Chandler has only fought amazing fighters. He's only ever lost to amazing fighters, and I just don't think Paddy is on the same level as a Charles Oliveira or as a who else is he losing to? Shoot, as a Dustin Poirier, as a Justin Gaethje. I do think that he's a good step below, and his striking defense is actually pretty poor, and Paddy just kind of swings for the fences whenever he's on the feet, and I just think that Michael Chandler's going to beat him in a battle like that. He almost got gifted a win against Bobby Green because Bobby Green shot a takedown in the first couple minutes of the fight for literally no reason. And when he was beating Paddy Pimblett on the feet, I think Paddy Pimblett was losing on the feet to Bobby Green. I think he's going to get slept by Michael Chandler. Paddy Pimblett kind of has like this frail, scared, striking defense. He has like this style of like cover up, and he's kind of scared on the feet almost at times, and I think that Michael Chandler's going to sleep him. If he brings that same aggression that he did in round 5 against Charles Oliveira in round 1, then without a shadow of a doubt, I think that he's going to knock out Paddy Pimblett, okay? But another fight that got announced for UFC 314 is Patricio Pitbull taking on Yair Rodriguez. And I think Yair's going to whoop his ass. Okay, I think Yair's going to knock him out. I think this is going to be a terrible, terrible day for Patricio Pitbull. I think he's going to get slept in round 3, and I think he's just going to get pieced up in this fight. I think it's going to be very, very bad. Okay, Patricio Pitbull's 37. He'll be 38 in July. Okay, he's over halfway to 38. He's coming from the PFL or Bellator or wherever he's from. Okay, he's never fought a guy at the caliber of Yair Rodriguez. Yair Rodriguez has some of the prettiest, fastest striking I've ever seen. Okay, the thing that's really holding Yair back is just his takedown defense. And I don't think Pitbull's going to be shooting on Yair. So I think I'm going to take Yair easily in that fight to knock out Patricio Pitbull. And finally, the last fight that I'm going to talk about is Carlos Prates taking on Jeff Neal. This fight's absolutely amazing. This is amazing matchmaking from the UFC. I'm so happy that they gave Carlos Prates another jump up in the rankings. I think that's smart. And also giving him a guy like Jeff Neal, who's super, super entertaining, is an amazing idea as well. This fight's going to be great, and I think that Carlos Prates is going to knock him out in round 2. Okay, I think Jeff Neal, I think this is going to be one of those fights where Jeff Neal is looking for the clinch and looking to just hold and smudge Carlos Prates up against the fence. I think Prates is I think he's going to do him like how he did the Leech. If you want my honest opinion, I think he's going to knock him out. All right, Jeff Neal kind of has these fights sometimes where he's like, I don't know how to explain it. He's very aggressive, and then the next fight he'll be really, really not. Okay, he'll go from having a brutal war with Vicente Luque or knocking out RDA in round 1 and having us all think that he's back to his old form. And then he has a stupid clinch fest with Ian Gary where he puts in almost no aggression and almost no effort to actually try and win the fight. So I do have a feeling that this fight could be super, super boring if Prates does not find the KO. But I just don't think that Jeff Neal is going to bring it to Prates like people think he is. I think Carlos Prates is going to be able to walk him down, and whenever Jeff Neal's not looking to clinch up with Carlos Prates, I think Prates is going to beat him on the feet. So I am going to take Carlos Prates by a second round KO. But yeah, I mean, these fights are absolutely insane. Dana White, some amazing matchmaking with this. Some amazing fights just got announced, and I'm so happy with how these fights all turned out.